What's going on everyone, you're back with your boy Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to look at how to convert fractions and decimals into percentages and vice versa. By the end of this we should be able to see 1%, one fraction or one decimal, and be able to convert it to either of the other two. So what a percentage is actually in the name. We've got per and cent. Per means divide, so something like kilometers per hour tells us that we are dividing something. And the word cent means 100. Like if you hit a century in cricket, or that 100 cents make up $1. So that means per cent means divide by 100. Or you could also think about it as a fraction that's always got 100 as the denominator, or down the bottom. So per cent, divide 100, that's all we really need to know. So dividing by 100 is such an important skill that it has its own symbol. It's actually just the division sign rotated a little bit, and that's what a percentage sign looks like. So this is so important that maths people came up with a whole new symbol for it because it does pop up so often. So the first skill we've got to look at is how to turn fractions into percentages. And because we've already talked about what percent actually means, we've got a really good indication of how to do this. As long as we come up with a fraction that has 100 on the bottom, it will be a percentage. Then all we need to do is write down the top number or the numerator, and we will be fine. So an example of this would be 30 over 100. We would just say that this is equal to 30%. The top number is the percentage we look at. What's important to remember is that both of these things are saying 30 divided by 100. They just look different. One of them's a fraction and one of them is a percentage. So that means to get these correct, all we need to use is our equivalent fraction skills. So if I've got something like this, 4 over 25, I want to turn that 25 into 100. I can do this by multiplying it by 4. If I multiply the bottom by 4 though, I have to multiply the top by 4. So this becomes over 100, 4 times 4 is equal to 16. That means that my answer must be 16% and I'm done. So here the skill is finding the equivalent fraction to get to 100 and then just writing down the top number. For this next one here, we've got 11 over 20. In order to get to 100 again, we need to multiply by 5. So that means that I've got to do that to the top and the bottom. 11 times by 5 is 55, and we know that it's going to be over 100. So my answer is 55%, and we're done. Finally, we can also do this with numbers that are bigger than 100. We still have to use the same operation on the top and the bottom. We have to divide in this case. We've got to take that 600 down to 100. So if I divide the top and the bottom by 6, I'm going to have a number that's over 100. 180 divided by 6 is 30. So my answer is 30%. So the other situation we're going to see is we need to turn decimals into percentages. And this is actually incredibly easy. When we multiply something by 10 or 100 or 1,000, all we have to do is move the decimal point around. We don't actually have to do any maths. So this is going to be especially helpful with this because we are dividing by 100 quite often. That means all we need to learn is how to move a decimal place 2 positions, and we're going to get these right. So this is just an example to see how these decimal places move. So if I've got 3 times 100, I know that that's 300. But if I write this out, instead of just the whole number 3, I write 3.00. These are exactly the same thing. I'm just putting some extra numbers after the decimal point. So that means when I do 3 times 100, I take this decimal point and I can move it 2 positions to the right. So if I go 1, 2, that means my answer is now 300. I can put the decimal there, I don't actually need to, but I'm just showing you how we can take this decimal from in between the whole number 3 and those 2 zeros and move it 2 positions. So that means anytime we're multiplying by 100, we're moving that decimal point 2 positions to the right. And that's the skill we need to know. And because multiplication and division are opposites, if I divide something by 100, I just have to move the decimal place 2 positions to the left, or the exact opposite. So that's the skill we're going to see here. Divide by 100 means percent, so we're definitely going to see some questions with this skill. So let's say that I had 25%. I could definitely say that that is the same as 25 divided by 100. Percent divide 100. So if I imagine that I put a decimal place after that 5, all I need to do in order to turn this from a percent to a decimal is move it 2 positions, but this time to the left. So I move it out the front of that 2, and then I need to just imagine that there was a 0 there as well. So this becomes 0.25. And that's all I need to do. That's the skill we're working on, moving 1 decimal point 2 places. So again, if I had a look at something like this, if I had 63%, all I need to do is move that decimal place 2 positions so that it says 0.63. and that's the decimal that goes with that percentage. Now, if I wanted to go the other way, I've got a decimal, 0.37. If I times this by 100, it's going to turn into the percentage. I just need to move this 2 positions, and that becomes 37%. And we are done. So this can get a little bit difficult when we're dealing with numbers between 1 and 10 because there is an extra 0 there. So for this one, I've got 0.05. I just need to remember I need to move it twice. So in this position, I'm moving it 2 spots, and that leaves me with 5%, not 50%. That is something that students do find hard, but just making sure we're moving it twice gives us that 5%. And we can also have numbers that are greater than 100%. If I've got 1.27 and I multiply that by 100, all I'm doing is moving the decimal place 2 positions like we've been doing, and that gives me the answer of 127%. So for this topic, the mathematics is not too difficult. It's just being able to know how we need to move that decimal point based on if we're multiplying by 100 or dividing by 100. Also, if you're on top of those equivalent fractions, I guarantee you're going to find this topic incredibly easy. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later.